Good afternoon, good evening. Today is Mother's Day, and so that's the subject of my message for today. And before getting into the actual message, I'd like to give you just a couple of brief comments with regard to some general things related to Mother's Day. First of all, as you probably already know, Mother's Day is always celebrated on the second Sunday in May. Mother's Day is the third most popular holiday behind only Christmas and Easter. And the average age at which women begin to have children gets extended because of the modern trend. It's later for women to have babies than they used to. And so some years ago, that average age was 26 for the mother, and it's probably even older than that today. The odds of women delivering twins are 1 in 33. And the odds of triplets or multiple births is something like 1 in 539. And there are more babies born in the month of August than any other month, and there's more babies born on Tuesday than any other day of the week. Now, most of you are probably familiar with the term oxymoron. And an oxymoron is simply a self-contradictory phrase. Now, let me give you some examples of that. One of them is virtual reality, jumbo shrimp, genuine imitation, and only choice. Now, the greatest oxymoron that I can think of, however, is this: just a mom or only a mom. And, we say those things as if being a mom is no big deal. But the essence of my message today, folks, is this: it is a big deal to be a mom. For a generation, America has devalued motherhood, and we have ignored the sanctity of life. But we need to get back to those two things as a nation, and we need to put mothers on the pedestal that they belong on. Although I worry about, as you do, a lot of things, including this coronavirus outbreak, but you see, the thing that worries me more than anything else is the status of things in our nation. Until we begin to appreciate mothers and fathers and teachers, policemen and firemen and people like that, I think the greatest danger to this nation is within rather than without. No other nation on earth could have done to this country what this coronavirus has done. Now, once again, let me give you a little bit of additional information. Let me tell you about the history of Mother's Day. There was a lady by the name of Anna Jarvis who lived in Philadelphia. She was the one who was responsible for getting the celebration of Mother's Day. Now, her mother had passed away in 1905, and before her mother died, she had been involved in an effort to bring the North and South together after the Civil War. So, in honor of her mother, Anna Jarvis had a celebration in Grafton, West Virginia. And she was so moved at what went on at that celebration that she began an effort to have Mother's Day adopted as a national holiday. And in the year 1910, West Virginia became the first state to celebrate Mother's Day. And then in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson officially proclaimed Mother's Day on the second Sunday in May. Now, just about every woman and every mother that I know of would like to be more beautiful. Of course, that's very understandable in light of the fact that society places such a great value on beauty. Pretty girls are generally the ones who get the dates with the high school heroes, and they're generally the one who are invited to the prom first, even though that has become a moot point in this day with coronavirus. But career-wise, pretty women generally get better jobs, generally make more money than those who are not beautiful. Pretty women also get waited on quicker and receive better treatment in most restaurants and retail stores than the women who are not as beautiful. There's 3 ways for a woman to become beautiful. The first one, of course, and the easiest one, is for her to be born beautiful. The second way is for her to buy beauty. And the third way, which is possible for all women, is for her to become beautiful. Now, as I said, the first way and the easiest way for a woman to become beautiful is to be born beautiful. Now, the Bible mentions several women of extraordinary beauty. You remember that Sarah, who was the wife of Abraham, scriptures tell us that she was a beautiful woman, so pretty, in fact, that when she and Abraham went to Egypt because of a famine, Abraham told the Egyptians that she was his sister rather than her wife, because he knew that if they told them that she was his wife, they would kill him and take him for one of their wives themselves. You'll also remember the story of Jacob and Rachel. You remember Jacob, he worked 7 years in order to marry Rachel, but Laban, who was Rachel's father, gave him Leah instead of Rachel. And so he had to work 7 more years before he was able to marry Rachel, but it was worth it because the Bible says that Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. You remember Esther was also mentioned as being a beautiful woman. Esther 2 verse 7 says, "This girl, who was also known as Esther, was lovely in form and features." And in the Song of Solomon, we see this lover described as beautiful with a beautiful figure. Being beautiful can be a mixed blessing, however. A guy by the name of Willis Abbott once wrote a book entitled Notable Women in History. And that book contained biographies of 73 women, of whom 29 were ranked as beautiful. And of those 29, 18, or 62%, met with violent deaths. Surveys have indicated that beautiful women have more personal problems and unhappiness than plainer ones. And you look at the lives of some of the ladies in Hollywood, Marilyn Monroe and people like that, and you see that illustrated. Many years ago, there was a song by a man by the name of Jimmy Soul that said, "If you want to be happy for the rest of your life." Now, I'm sure a lot of you remember that, and if you remember, the essence of that song was that pretty women do not make good wives, and that in the long run, it's better to marry one who is not so beautiful rather than one who is beautiful. Now, the second way that women may become beautiful is by buying beauty. Now, American women spend billions of dollars every year on cosmetics and clothes. Cosmetics are some of the most advertised and probably have some of the highest margins of any products that we can see, based upon the fact that lots of space in department stores is devoted to cosmetics, And we see lots of advertising on TV with regard to cosmetics. Now, when I was growing up, if you wanted to buy jewelry, you went to a jewelry store. But now we see stores like Walmart, Kohl's, Belk, and places like that advertising that they sell more jewelry than do the traditional jewelry stores like Kay's and Zales and people like that. Now, regarding the advertisement of jewelry, I'm sure you're all familiar with the expression, he went to Jared, or every kiss begins with K, or something of that nature. Now, beauty is nothing new, because back in his epistle, Peter talked about outward adorning. And in talking about outward adorning, he was talking about such things as braiding the hair, the wearing of gold jewelry, the wearing of fine clothes, and things of that nature. But buying beauty may allow women to look better than they normally would, but there are some disadvantages to that. First of all, it can be very expensive. And if any of you have bought cosmetics or jewelry or anything like that recently, you certainly know what I'm talking about. And secondly, beauty fades quickly, and also fads change quickly. In order to sell more clothes or shoes or whatever, manufacturers are sure that they change fads every year. One year it's pastels, the next year it's autumns and browns and things like that. And hemlines go up like a yo-yo every year. And so fashions change every year just about on purpose, because that way people are able to sell more. And thirdly, buying beauty is also superficial. It puts the emphasis upon something else. And finally, buying beauty does not fool those who are closest to us. Now, ladies may buy hair coloring to color their roots, and even their best friends may not know that. But their husbands know that, and their 10-year-old grandchild knows that. And if their grandchild knows it, pretty soon the whole world knows it. Now, the third way for women to be beautiful is by becoming beautiful. And 1 Peter 3:4 says, "But let it," that is your beauty, "be hidden in your heart." Now, the Phillips translation of this verse says, "Your beauty shall not be dependent on an elaborate coiffure or on the wearing of jewelry or fine clothes, but on the inner personality." And the New British Bible translates that verse in this way: "Your beauty should reside not in outward adornment, but in the inmost of your being." You've all heard the expression that beauty is only skin deep. Folks, I would tell you that beauty is not skin deep. Beauty is heart deep. And the love of Jesus Christ can change the way we look, including us men, for which I'm very thankful. That by being Christians, we have a different look about us than people who are not Christians. There was a fourth grade teacher not too long ago who assigned their students the assignment of writing a paper completing this sentence: "My mother is blank." And many of the responses to that said that my mother is beautiful. And whenever you look at those papers and you do a correlation between those papers and the physical looks of the mother, what you see is that many of those women were not beautiful. They were warm and friendly and loving, and that's what was important to these young people. Now, when Christ comes into our life, He doesn't change the shape of our nose, the size of our nose. He doesn't enhance our figure. He doesn't eliminate wrinkles on our face. He changes our heart. He can change a negative, critical person into a loving, compassionate Christian. He can change a person who's never had a single thought about anybody but themselves. He can change that person into a loving person who is concerned about helping their fellow man. So contrary to what many people think, but consistent with what Peter's epistle says, beauty is indeed heart deep. Although Peter talks about a wife or a mother as a gentle and quiet spirit, that does not mean that the wife is without opinion. It does not mean that she's a doormat. It does not mean that we can treat her any way that we want to, and she can do nothing but just take it. What it does mean is that a wife or a mother has an even temperament. They're patient, they're loving, they have a sense of humor, and they have affection for everyone. Our world is filled with brashness and with strife. Kids watch TV, and I guess probably the word disrespect is probably the most used word, but anybody who disrespects a young person, in their mind, they either take them to court or kill them. Politeness has all but disappeared, and with social media the way that it is, people don't even communicate even during meals. So, becoming beautiful is a type of beauty that never fails. Natural beauty diminishes with age. Now, there's a lot of variability on what that age is, but as we get older, we develop wrinkles. Our hair begins to turn gray, and certain parts of our body begin to sag. And that's just nature. That's just the way it is. But you see, the type of beauty that I'm talking about really gets better, not worse, as we get older. We become more patient. We become more loving. We become kinder, and we become more gentle. Now, I was preparing this message. Norma showed me an article that she was reading that was entitled "A Faith Worth Handing Down." And I thought I would conclude this morning by talking for just a moment about that article. The most precious thing that mothers can do for their children, that they can pass along to their children, is their faith. We read a lot in the New Testament about Timothy and what a close relationship he had with God. But you see, that relationship that he had with God was no accident. That relationship with God was developed because he had a faithful, loving Christian mother and grandmother. So there's lots of things that mothers pass along to their children having to do with their faith. And so we need to make sure that as parents that we do that. And as I often say in sermons that I have preached, if we fail to pass along our faith to our children, then we are absolute abject failures as parents, because our children should see us as Christians and they should want to live and to be like we are. Thank you very much.